The rain didn't fall. It fell as if the sky wanted to drown the mud road. In a flash of lightning he saw it, a huge black Jaguar, standing on the side of the road, not in ambush, not in flight. Prey. A rusty padlock secured an industrial chain around her neck, tying her to a metal post driven into the ground. She pulled desperately, and the iron bit into her skin, creating a red circle that the muddy water couldn't wash away. But the worst part wasn't the blood. A few centimeters from the paws, a soggy cardboard box crumbled into layers. From inside came thin meows, almost invisible in the thunder. 4 blind puppies, glued together, trembling. The water rose, licked the edge of the box, and in one fell swoop, wet the little one. The mother growled, not to attack, but to beg. Miguel, a park ranger, stopped the jeep sideways. There was no time for radio, no team, no plan, only one choice: approach a cornered predator, or watch 4 lives disappear into the mud. He came down with a pair of wire cutters and a thick blanket. Every step seemed to spark fire in the air. Still, she looked at the box, as if to say, them first, right now. Miguel knew that part of the reserve, like someone who knows old scars. The road cut through the forest and on rainy days became a corridor of traps, deep mud, fallen branches, floods that appeared out of nowhere. But that night there was something different in the air. A metallic smell mixed with fear. It was not human fear, which thinks and calculates. It was the raw fear of someone who feels time slipping through their fingers. The black Jaguar was there like a mistake in the world, an animal made to dominate silence, reduced to a fixed point, trapped by an iron that did not belong to the forest. And next to it, the box. That box made no sense. Someone put it there on purpose. Someone tied the mother up so she could helplessly watch the fate of her own cubs. Miguel was not naive. He had seen hunters, traps, petty cruelties, and carefully planned cruelties. But I had never seen a mother ask for help without being able to use force. The sound that came from her chest wasn't a roar, it was surrender. He tightened his grip on the pliers, feeling the weight of the decision. If she attacked, he would die. If he hesitated, they would die. And in that storm there was no third option. The wind came from the side and almost ripped Miguel off the ground as he charged at the Jaguar. The light from the headlights trembled in the curtain of rain, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. With each step, the mud gripped his boots like desperate hands. He kept his palms open, clearly visible, and his body low, not out of submission, but so as not to appear like a threat. The Jaguar flattened its ears. His back rippled with tension. The teeth flashed, too white for that dark night. A low growl vibrated in his chest. A simple, ancient message: stay away. Miguel felt the instinctive impulse to retreat. No amount of training takes away the fact that at less than 2 meters, there was enough force to break bones like twigs. Then the water hit the box with more force. The cardboard gave way on one side, and a trickle of mud invaded the interior. One of the puppies moved, letting out a high-pitched meow, short, weak, as if the sound itself was afraid to exist. The Jaguar looked down, and in that second, something broke in the air. She didn't move forward. She didn't attack. She made a low, dragging sound, a lament that didn't fit with the animal Miguel knew from tracks and stories. It was a request without language. Miguel looked away from her eyes and fixed the chain. The metal was thick with rust, and the padlock looked old but firm. He knelt in the mud slowly and placed the pliers on the most exposed link. The hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the knowledge that any wrong move could be the last. The Jaguar breathed quickly. Miguel could see the pulse pounding in her throat, just below the injured rim. He smelled blood and rain, and for a moment he wondered how many hours she had been stuck there, watching the water rise. Human guilt, faceless, weighed in his chest. He pressed the pliers. The first squeeze did nothing. The second brought a creaking sound from the metal. The entire Jaguar contracted, its claws sinking into the mud. Miguel pushed harder, with all the weight of his body, until he felt his arms burn. Snap. The link broke with a dry, definitive sound. The chain fell, heavy, splashing mud. For a moment the Jaguar remained motionless, as if freedom were a shock. Miguel held his breath. She turned, not to run away, and stuck her nose into the box, poking urgently, checking each puppy as if counting heartbeats. The water already covered Miguel's ankles. There was no more time. He reached for the box, expecting the worst. The Jaguar raised its head, its golden eyes fixed on his fingers. A short huff came from his nose, a warning, and then she took a step back. She allowed it. Miguel carefully picked up the box, but the cardboard gave way under the weight of the water. He felt the structure crumbling, as if he were holding a secret about to fall apart. Without thinking, he took the woolen blanket off his shoulder and wrapped everything. Box, puppies, what little was left of protection. A cub slid to the side, and Miguel caught it with his fingertips, tiny, warm and shivering, a racing heart inside a body that barely looked real. The Jaguar walked close to him, almost without sound, like a shadow that the rain couldn't erase. She no longer growled. Her focus was singular, the puppies. Miguel ran to the jeep, opened the back door, and in the same movement placed the box on the seat. Before it closed, she jumped in with absurd agility for her size. The seat creaked under the weight of the black body, and for a second Miguel thought she was going to take the car for herself. Instead, she curled around the box. Miguel started the engine and accelerated. The tires skated, looking for grip. The road was a tunnel of water and mud, and each curve seemed to throw the jeep into the bush. In the rearview mirror, he could see only her outline, a dark mass that moved with calculated calm, licking her cubs through the blanket, as if trying to return heat with her tongue. When he arrived at the cabin, the storm seemed to have followed along like an insistent witness. Miguel opened the door, and the hot air from the fire hit him in the face. He had no cage, no enclosure, no plan B. Just a wooden floor, a worn rug, and a burning fireplace. He placed the box near the fire and took 2 steps back, offering space. The Jaguar descended slowly, shaking the water off its body. The environment was strange to her. Walls, furniture, human smell on everything. Still, she didn't attack anything. He didn't try to escape. He just pulled the puppies out, one by one, and placed them against his belly like someone rebuilding the world with their own paws. Miguel went to the closet, took out the first aid kit and a bowl. The wound on her neck was ugly, raw, inflamed flesh, and an odor that betrayed infection. He boiled water, mixed in warm milk, and left it nearby without forcing it. Then he knelt at a respectful distance, showing the cotton and the antiseptic as if that might mean something. The Jaguar watched him. Her chest rose and fell, slow, heavy. When Miguel reached out to touch the wound, she flinched, a low rumble rising deep within her body. Miguel stopped, waited. She advanced her neck an inch and allowed it. He cleaned the wound with short strokes, and in the middle of it, she closed her eyes for a moment, as if the pain was less important than the chance to trust. The silence of dawn came slowly, as if the rain had gotten tired of beating. Drops were still dripping from the roof, but the worst was over. Miguel didn't sleep. He sat in the armchair, with his hands on the arms of the chair, watching the babies breathe. 4 little waves of life rising and falling beneath the mother's body. Sometimes she would lift her head and stare at the window, alert, as if waiting for the threat to come back down the road. When the sky cleared, Miguel picked up the radio and made the call he knew was inevitable. He couldn't keep a wild family indoors, no matter how much the cabin seemed at that moment the safest place in the world. The rescue center responded quickly. Team on the way. The sound of the truck appeared before he was seen. Heavy engine, tires crushing puddles, the smell of diesel filling the air. The Jaguar rose at the same moment. The hairs on his neck stood up. She retreated to the corner of the room, positioning her body between the men and the cubs. A short hiss came from his throat, followed by a growl that made the wood of the cabin seem too small. 2 veterinarians entered with practiced calm. A third brought a restraint baton. They saw the wound on the neck. They saw the puppies. They saw the risk. And when the Jaguar took a step forward, they lifted the tranquilizer. A dart. A quick, safe solution for them. Miguel felt his stomach sink. The Jaguar's gaze was on him, and it wasn't anger. It was a question. Did you bring me another trap? He placed himself in front of the dart rifle. No, he said firmly without shouting. Leave it to me. The men hesitated. Miguel then lowered his body and extended his empty hand, the same way he did in the storm. He spoke quietly, as if the sound could instill confidence. It is good too, I'll go with you. Trust me, just one more time. The Jaguar alternated his gaze between the dart and Miguel. Her breathing quickened. The cubs moved blindly, seeking warmth. Miguel pointed to the open shipping box on the door, with blankets inside. Then he retreated, offering a path. Time stopped in a fraction of a second. Then she pushed the cubs with her snout, guiding them one by one, keeping her body as a shield. He passed the strangers without taking his eyes off them. When he reached Miguel's side, he brushed his side against his leg, a quick contact, almost rough, but full of intention, and entered the box. When the grate closed, Miguel noticed something on the floor near the carpet, a small mark of industrial paint on the broken chain, like those used in freight yards. That hadn't come from the forest. Someone had brought it, and someone was still nearby. Weeks later, the air in the forest seemed different, denser, more alive, full of smells that couldn't fit inside any cabin: damp earth, crushed leaves, ripe fruits, and the distant trail of rivers. The Jaguar was different. The scar on his neck was still there, but the skin had closed, and the fur was once again covering the edges of the old prison. The cubs, now firmer, stumbled and ran as if the world were just a big green toy. Miguel followed the entire process: exams, quarantine, rehabilitation, readaptation to hunting. He watched from afar, respecting her space, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that the story had left something in him. An invisible line stretched between two worlds that shouldn't touch. On the day of release, the team positioned the transport box in the protected heart of the reserve, away from roads and close to clean water. Miguel held the latch lever, feeling his palms sweat despite the heat. When he released it, the door opened with a long, almost solemn creak. The chicks came out first, darting into the ferns, disappearing like little shadows. The mother left later, with slow, measured steps. It stopped. He took a deep breath, like someone recognizing a house they thought they had lost. Miguel expected her to leave without looking, but she turned her entire body. He ignored the truck. He ignored the voices. He ignored everything. He looked at Miguel from a distance in silence. There was no threat, there was no fear, there was memory, a type of recognition that didn't need words to exist. She stayed there for a time that no one knew how to measure. Then she took a step back, tail flicking once, and dissolved into the trees, not like a fugitive, but like someone who had finally returned to who she always was. Miguel remained still, staring at the void where she had been, and for the first time, the question that the rain had brought came back clearly. How many chains are still out there, hidden, waiting for the next storm?